Hello again. This is the third session out of a series of 5. Today Marina is going to discuss the responsibilities of trustees, who's responsible for maintenance, repairs and improvements in a sectional title scheme. Vital information, if necessary, get a pen and paper ready to make some notes and empower yourself. I think these sessions from Marina is absolutely powerful, and I hope you gain from it as much as I do. Enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of Demystifying Sectional Title, where we're going to discuss the authority of the trustees. Where does their authority begin and where does it end? And how they're empowered to act. What are their duties? What are their responsibilities towards the body corporate? Now, admittedly, being a trustee is really not an easy job. And it's not for sissies. And we've had many complaints and reports filed against trustees who act in a draconian fashion and who take their power trip a little bit too seriously. In fact, in our second edition of Demystifying Sectional Title, we depicted the chairperson of the body corporate just a little bit like a Julius Caesar. Perhaps a little bit unfair, but I don't think so, taking into account all the things that we see every day. Trustees, I suppose, in fairness, have to be balanced, pragmatic, but they're the enforcers. They're the enforcers of the rules, and some people really don't like rules, so it becomes difficult. But when we talk about the legal root of trustees' powers, where do we look? Well, it's really set out in Section 3 and 4 of the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, where all the functions and all the powers are provided for, but the body corporate is given these powers in Section 3 and 4. Then you have to look a little bit further in the Act, in Section 7, where those powers are delegated to that band of merry men and women called the trustees. And again, legally, we've spoken about this word, they have fiduciary duties. And those duties are the duties of care and skill and diligence to act in the best interests of all the members of the body corporate. They've got to ensure that all the rules in the scheme are reasonable and are consistent and applied equally to everybody in the scheme. So once we know this and once we understand where the trustees' powers are, we need to look further into the Act to see where they have the full authority to go forward and make decisions and where they need to back off and then bring in the body corporate, which is all the owners, as we heard in the first episode. So how does authority relate to sections? Your section, if this is my section, I'm in my section now, how can trustees invade my privacy, and what are they and aren't they allowed to do, and can they dictate to me what I can do in my section? Well, no, they can't. I can really do whatever I like in my section. I can paint it, I can put whatever furniture that I want to put in it. But there are two circumstances where it becomes a little bit trickier and where I do need trustee involvement. And those two circumstances are where I'm going to be dealing with pipes in my unit. I'm going to put a jacuzzi bath in. I'm going to change my kitchen and make sure that I put in a different kind of appliances and things like that. So where I'm dealing with pipes particularly, I need trustee permission. What about things like structure? Yes, definitely. Then I'll also need trustee permission when I'm dealing with moving a pillar or something that's going to affect the structural integrity of the building. Then trustees can certainly come knocking at my door. When it comes to maintenance, anything to do with maintenance, the trustees have full authority in that regard. So trustees are actually, it's a sort of compulsory requirement that trustees look after a sectional title building. In many cases, we've had trustees were taken to adjudication, or in the old days to arbitration, for failing to ensure that they maintained the building. I remember quite clearly in one building, you had a lot of trustees who were pensioners and who had a limited income and weren't really interested in maintaining the building to the standard which other younger residents wanted it to be. And we took those matters on, and every adjudication and every arbitration they held that the trustees do have a duty to maintain that building, and if they don't have the funds to maintain that building, then they need to raise a special levy. Of course, now we've got the maintenance, repair and replacement plan, where those funds are financed from a separate reserve fund. And in most bodies corporate, it's going to be easier to be able to fund the maintenance, repair and replacement, because it's all set out in sort of phases. So maintenance issues, definitely. And with maintenance issues, trustees don't need any kind of special resolution from owners to proceed. So if the trustees want to paint the building, they can go ahead and decide that they're going to paint the building and source the necessary funds from the reserve fund. If they're nice, they might paint different strips on the walls, different colors, and ask the opinions of the rest of the owners, but they're not, it's not compulsory that they do that. So maintenance falls squarely within the realms of trustee responsibility and authority, and they have to act in that regard. Then we get things like extensions. We have spoken about extensions, but trustees can't give their permission for owners to be extending their properties or the boundaries or floor areas of their premises. Remember, things like mezzanine levels also fall under the definition now of extensions. So where you want to put in a middle tier to your room, like steps going up in a mezzanine kind of level, that's also seen as an extension. And in terms of Section 24 of the Sectional Titles Act, not the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, the Sectional Titles Act, which is still in existence, you require a special resolution from owners of the body corporate to be able to extend with a mezzanine level or going out with the boundaries and that. So trustees don't have that right to do it, and neither do developers, by the way. Something we always bump into. Developers at the outset, when they want to make their clients happy and prospective purchasers happy, make all sorts of promises to people. Yeah, you can do that. Don't worry. We'll look the other way. Build that wall. Extend your patio. Hem your garden in. Do all these kind of things, and that's really where the problems start. So if there are any developers watching this, I think it's important for you to just make note of that. It just creates major problems. Then we talk about improvements to common property. So improvements to common property are a very different proposition to maintenance matters, because improvements to common property require the input of the body corporate, of the owners. They have to get involved in making that kind of decision. And in the old Sectional Titles Act, the law spoke about luxurious and non-luxurious improvements. Luxurious and non-luxurious improvements to common property required different resolutions. So your luxurious improvements required a unanimous resolution, and non-luxurious improvements required a special resolution. And the Act never defined what that actually meant. So we just went on it on the basis that a non-luxurious improvement was something that was a necessary kind of improvement. In the new Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, the law talks about reasonably necessary improvements and not reasonably necessary improvements. And the reasonably necessary improvements to common property require a special resolution from the body corporate. So again, trustees can't just go about making their own decisions about reasonably necessary improvements. And what are reasonably necessary improvements? Well, things like security. Security is a reasonably necessary improvement. We can all agree that it is definitely, particularly in South Africa, necessary to have security. So things like alarms and intercom systems and things like that you're going to put up. Lighting's reasonably necessary. Landscaping may be reasonably necessary, but then again it might fall into the not reasonably necessary depending on how luxurious it is. So if you want to put in a swimming pool or a tennis court, that falls into the realms of not reasonably necessary. And again, that also depends on whether or not you live in a scheme in a really down market area or in a luxury kind of sectional title scheme in a really upmarket area. So that might change dependent on that. But there, just to recap, trustees don't have the say about if those things can come or not. And trustees can't just make unilateral decisions about those kind of improvements. They do, however, have a say when it comes to minor alterations. So if I want to put an awning up outside the entrance of my door as an owner, then with that I would just need trustee permission. So if you're putting nails into common property walls and putting up pictures or doing things like that, they talk about security doors and mosquito nets and things like that. Those are minor alterations, so that you need trustee permission. And trustees can't be unreasonable about withholding permission for those kind of things. So yeah, we've got to be very clear on minor alterations. What about rules? Where does trustee authority come in when it comes to the rules of the scheme? Do trustees sit down and work out, what the rules are going to be, and then just present them and as a done deal? No, rules can't be changed by trustees unilaterally. Rules need to be prepared by the trustees, and amendments to rules need to be prepared by trustees. Then a notice needs to go out to all the owners, giving them 30 days notice to say, right, we're amending these rules, have a look at them. The rules must be attached so that people are not ambushed at the meeting. The meeting must be called, and a special resolution needs to be obtained at 75% in both number and value in order to pass those rules. The rules then go on to the community scheme ombud. The community scheme ombud now has the responsibility and duty to check those rules, and some of the rules can be taken out and not disallowed. And then if they are allowed and they are checked properly and approved, then you get a compliance certificate. The body corporate will receive a compliance certificate for those rules, and the trustees are then bound by those rules that the body corporate has made. So there are those kind of things that bind trustees. What about levies? How empowered are trustees to just impose levies on everybody and say, right, this is what we think and that's how it's going to be? Well, no, they can't, because they will sit with a managing agent. Hopefully they have a managing agent, and they'll work out a budget for the year and work out what the levies should be. Then the levies are taken to an annual general meeting, and at the annual general meeting, they will sit and discuss the levies and see if that's acceptable to everybody, and the body corporate, all the owners will approve those levies. And straight after that, the trustees then, in a little meeting after the AGM, confirm that that is the amount of the levy, and within 14 days a letter goes out to all owners to say, yes, we've all agreed that this is the levy. So in many respects, the trustees and the owners are very much in it together. At the same time, the trustees shouldn't be restricted too much, because they've got to be quite agile in running a scheme. It's important for them to be able to make decisions. So the last thing I want to tell you is, when it comes to things like at the annual general meeting, the restrictions and directions are a point on the agenda. When it comes to restricting trustees to not spend above a certain amount without reverting back to the body corporate, the owners must bear in mind that that figure can't be too high, because if the trustees have got to come back every time and ask for permission from the body corporate, it might restrict them from making certain decisions. So yeah, I think there's a great responsibility on trustees. They definitely have if they breach their fiduciary duty, they can be sued in their personal capacity. So again, there's always got to be a balance, a via media between the powers of the trustees and the needs of the body corporate. And I think if both sides can mutually respect each other, then it goes a long way to make a happier complex.
Thank you, Marina. I hope you have a better understanding now of what the responsibilities of a trustee and who is responsible for the repairs, maintenance, etc. Please be on the lookout for session 4 that will follow and gain more knowledge. Thank you and enjoy.